Gamers have become so aware of censorship in their entertainment over the past couple of years, and it's like companies think that we're just going to look past a lot of issues in titles, and that isn't happening. And now the Access Media is saying most overt on censorship in a video game as a quote, and Stalker fans are review bombing the remastered trilogy when really they're not review bombing it because they hate a product. They are simply criticizing a decision made by this company. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, any censorship is too much censorship, and that is the mindset that a lot of gamers have now. It's why I try to talk so much about censorship on this channel, because a lot of people don't, and unfortunately, when it comes to remakes and remasters and reboots, it's very easy to accidentally miss some altered content, and now we're finding out that Stalker fans are really upset, and this game is being raked across the coals. So it says yesterday, GSC Game World launched the Legends of the Zone Enhanced Edition on PC, a remastered bundle of the original 3 Stalker games. There's a lot to celebrate, namely controller support and achievements, but one look at the subreddit and store pages and you'll see that plenty of fans aren't happy, as every game in the trilogy launched to mixed reviews on Steam yesterday. The collection has removed or replaced several examples of Soviet imagery, likely due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war, which forced several developers at the Kiev-based studio to flee the country's western border. Now, obviously, I feel bad for anybody who is in the middle of a conflict like this, but on the flip side, you can't just remove imagery because it bothers you. You just can't. That would be like, oh, we have Wolfenstein games, but by the way, guys, we can't have Nazi imagery now. It is a video game. It is not supposed to be an accurate representation of anything that anybody living is currently going through, and sometimes you do have to be uncomfortable with the premise of the game. Sometimes art is uncomfortable. That doesn't mean that it should be censored or toned down because it bothers somebody. It says, though, this led to numerous delays for Stalker 2, with Russia even launching a disinformation campaign against the game. As a result, the studio refused to launch Stalker 2 in Russia, removing Russian voiceovers and subtitles. Now it appears to be following suit with the original trilogy's remaster. However, fans argue that the Soviet imagery in the first 3 Stalker games wasn't condoning Russia. It was not. That would be like, oh, if you put the NZ imagery in a game, you're condoning NZs? Absolutely not. And so it shouldn't have been axed in the enhanced editions. Maybe if they didn't want this imagery, they shouldn't have released the enhanced editions currently. Maybe that should not have been their plan, and they should have been focused on making newer content that did not include this. It says, though, most overt on censorship in a video game in age, as one reviewer writes, the main appeal of the game's world set in Chernobyl is that the place itself is trapped in 1986, a museum of time, according to an individual of GSC in their documentary Behind the Making of Stalker 2. Abandoned buildings and radioactive surroundings serve as a permanent link to the disaster, with rotting hammers and sickles and propaganda posters constantly reminding us of who's responsible for this incompetence. And of course, the Access Media wants to paint this as like, oh, gamers aren't letting the developers do what they want, and they're review bombing it. Review bombing, okay, is supposed to mean that people have focused on attacking this game for reasons that are not valid. That was the original reason people started saying review bombing. Levying legitimate criticisms towards a game and rating it negatively is not review bombing it. There are people who are genuinely disappointed that they are, having to witness censorship in these editions of the games, and so they're not going to purchase it, or they purchased it, noticed it, and left a negative review because they were not happy with the product they paid for. It's like with The Last of Us. People didn't review bomb The Last of Us Part 2 because they are homophobes and sexists and bigots. It's because it was a bad story and people were simply not happy with the story. Same thing's going on with the show now, but of course, the Access Media and sometimes game developers want to spin it. They want to push a certain narrative so that it's almost as if, oh, hey, an average person will see their response and not take the fans' criticisms legitimately, which is always, of course, so disappointing. And I shouldn't even really have to say this, but censorship is bad. Another entity controlling the texts and the visuals and the controlling the experience that you are consuming is not good. The access media never stands for people's rights, though. They simply stand for, oh, hey, we are going to side with what gets us a little bit more control, which is terrible, and which is why I will never support them. It says, though, on the series subreddit, one fan even penned a letter to the developer directly, signed by the Stalker community. It congratulates GSC on the launch of the remaster and thanks the studio for providing those versions for free to those who already own the original games, while also lauding the new features and quality of life improvements, including Steam Workshop support. But they also decried the sweeping changes made to the zone and calls on them to either revert them or add an option to add the original content back for yourself. You would think that right here would be The Gamer and any other, article that releases by any other website. They would be saying, oh, hey, yes, this would actually be good if the developers took into consideration how their fans are feeling, and maybe they shouldn't try to control what you're seeing. But that doesn't happen because this is The Gamer writing this article. It's James Lucas, and of course, they're getting roasted. Now, censorship isn't review bombing. It's a legitimate complaint. Fiction does not need censorship. Remove the people who seek to censor what once was, and world peace will be achieved in the creative sector. I mean, I agree. Fiction does not need censorship, sure. There is plenty of fiction that I and many other people are uncomfortable with. Sometimes art is uncomfortable, and that is not a negative thing. Sometimes you need to get a point across, and by doing that, you have to make people uncomfortable. There are adult themes in entertainment, like Game of Thrones has rape. Game of Thrones has incest. Those things are a bit traumatic for people. Those are things that the average individual wouldn't want to constantly read about or consume content on, but it is a theme that gets the point across about the brutality of the world. And that is what was important to George R.R. Martin. He wanted to get the point across that Westeros and his world, A Song of Ice and Fire, is not a place of rainbows and sunshine. It's like 1984. We're seeing a lot of that same shit happening in the real world right now. So there are a lot of people who get uncomfortable reading 1984. They don't want to read about Big Brother because they have to worry about corporations already trying to seize that control for themselves, become mega corporations that are ultimately, as we're seeing here, controlling what you are consuming, like in something such as a Blade Runner. And the responses to Savvy's posts are absolutely fantastic. Review bombing is simply a ton of reviews in a space. Journos keep associating it in a negative light because it's usually done for legitimate reasons, but they dislike it because they hate anything being improved and consumers exercising a little bit of protest they can. I swear they're contrarian just for the sake of it. How they've survived on this glorious flat earth this long is beyond me. And to top all of this censorship backlash off, it's not even a technically sound game. If we head on over to Steam, there are tons of people just saying it's buggy, it's broken, you can't enjoy it. Enhanced version review, I don't know how this was approved, ready for launch. I played the original series to death and have it on almost all media I own, physical and digital. This version feels like a half-assed console port. There is no DLAA/DLSS, but there is AMD FSR for some godforsaken reason. With FSR enabled plus native resolution and sharpness on max, it's still blurry, and it adds ghosting as well on top to balance out the crap of a little bit of diarrhea, and the game looks worse than the original PC port without the former one. The picture's so noisy and blurry. They're even saying if they turn off blur and depth of field, it only helps a little bit. Film grain, forced TAA. They remastered the game, improved the textures, upscaled them, only to smear TAA blur all over it. Gaming in 2025 in a nutshell, gotta support the current thing. There is nothing enhanced about this version. The visuals are disgustingly blurry, and even at max settings, it still feels like 720p. With several other aspects censored or outright omitted, there's absolutely no reason to play this version. It's buggy. Unfortunately, you can't play it. You can't bind the keys for your mouse buttons. You can't rename manual saves. New quick save doesn't rewrite the previous one. Game size is twice as big as the original. Censorship. Settings do not save. HUD got changed to worse. Bugs with invisible anomalies. Some of the enemy bodies despawn in a matter of seconds. So clearly there are a hell of a lot of problems with this. And of course, that's really unfortunate for the Stalker fans who are really excited to purchase this and play it and thoroughly enjoy their time back in the zone. So I'll be keeping my eye on this. I don't see a way that this is going to all magically get sorted in a week or two with like a single patch. I think they'd need to put a lot of time and effort into fixing the bugs and the glitches and the visual problems. And I don't foresee them changing the censorship. I don't see them deciding to take a step back, understand where we're coming from, and add that content back into the game. So I'll be keeping my eye on this. Maybe there will be a big update in the next few days. Only time will tell. But for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like. And if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way. But I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.